Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an incredibly rich, frankly fascinating subject. We're going to take an objective, detailed look at Islamic eschatology, specifically focusing on the stages behind human death. Based on our source material, we are going on a chronological journey through what Islamic tradition describes as the unseen reality, the reality that kicks in the exact moment a human life ends. So let's jump right in. I want you to picture this hypothetical scenario for a second. What actually happens after you close your eyes for the very last time? The source describes this chilling moment where suddenly your tongue can no longer speak. Your eyes fixate on a single point, and your heart beats its final beat. Then a coldness starts at your toes and slowly begins to creep up throughout your body. But according to the text, this isn't just physical coldness. It's this profound, undeniable sign that your soul is packing its bags, preparing for a journey into a completely unknown realm. All right, let's look at stage one, the final breath, the actual departure of the soul. Now, the text lays out a very precise, step-by-step physical progression here. The soul doesn't just poof and vanish, it's literally pulled upward. It starts down at the feet, moves up into the legs, hits the stomach, travels up into the chest, and finally it reaches the throat. And the text makes a point to note that this moment, when the soul hits the throat, is one of immense agony. It's described as all your pain gathering at once, feeling as though every single cell in your body is screaming. It's akin to a hair being violently ripped from its root. But wait, because the struggle isn't just physical, it's intensely spiritual too. In these final, agonizing moments, the tradition states that a dark, unseen figure appears right beside you. This is Shaitan, or Satan, and he comes bearing a cup of water, weaponizing your unbearable physical thirst against your lifelong faith. He whispers, "Give me your faith and take this water." All while your entire life, your prayers, your worst sins, your tears, your moments of repentance is flashing right before your eyes. The source tells us that only those with deeply rooted, genuine faith can actually resist this ultimate, final deception. The outcome of this struggle leads to two wildly different departures. Just look at the vivid similes used in the source material here. For a believer, the soul is said to leave the body as smoothly and peacefully as a drop of water flowing from a jug. No resistance. But for a disbeliever, it is a violent extraction. It's described as being pulled out like a thorny branch dragged through wet wool, literally tearing veins and nerves apart on the way out. Moving right along to stage two, the ascent of the soul as it journeys to the heavens. Once the newly detached soul begins this profound upward journey, the duality of the afterlife experience becomes incredibly stark. According to the tradition, angels wrap the soul of the righteous believer in fine silk infused with this incredibly beautiful perfume. As they ascend, the gates of heaven swing wide open for them, all the way up to the seventh heaven, greeting the soul with absolute peace. Conversely, the soul of the wicked gets tossed into a rough sack that emits a foul, overwhelming stench. And as they are carried upward, the gates of the lowest heaven flat out refuse to open for them, and they are cast right back down. Which brings us back down to earth for stage three, the grave and the questioning. So above ground, the body is being respectfully washed, shrouded in simple white cloth, and lowered into the cold soil. But below ground, the grave is absolutely not a place of quiet rest just yet. The text dramatically introduces two terrifying angels of questioning, Munkar and Nakir. As the last footsteps of the living fade away above, the grave literally shakes, the walls crack, and these angels appear. We're talking towering giants whose eyes flash like lightning and whose voices roar like thunder. And they immediately demand to know, "Man Rabbika, who is your Lord?" This is the exact interrogation the soul faces next. The angels ask four specific things. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? And what is your book? According to the tradition, a true believer instinctively knows these answers. They don't even have to think about it. Their faith just speaks for them. But the disbeliever or the hypocrite, they stammer in sheer terrifying ignorance and can only reply with, "I don't know." And the answers to those questions dictate exactly what happens next. The source explains this truly fascinating concept. A person's earthly choices take literal, physical form inside the grave with them. If you are righteous, your good deeds appear as this glowing, beautiful figure, bringing the fragrance of paradise, comforting you and physically expanding your grave as far as the eye can see. But for the wicked, their unrepented sins manifest as a hideous, filthy figure that brings unimaginable regret. The grave constricts, literally crushing them, and they are tormented by 99 serpents designed specifically for punishment. Okay, moving on to stage 4, the realm of Barzakh, also known as the waiting place. Stepping past the physical dirt of the tomb, we really need to define this next realm clearly, because it completely shatters the idea that the afterlife is just being stuck in a wooden coffin. Barzakh is a spiritual corridor. Think of it as a transitional realm between this world and the eternal hereafter. The source describes it not as a dark hole, but for the believers, as a vast, bright, incredibly peaceful waiting place. It's a dynamic bridge where time actually flows entirely differently, and it is completely distinct from the physical soil where the body is resting. And get this, life in Barzakh is highly social. The text reports the belief that souls in Barzakh actually reunite. Whenever a new soul arrives, the others gather around to converse, eager for news about the living they left behind. The prophet is quoted as saying they recognize one another just as birds sitting upon the same tree recognize each other. They can even maintain a line of communication with the living through what the tradition calls true dreams. That actually leads us perfectly into stage 5 of our source material, ties to the living, and these unbroken connections. The number 40 pops up as a massive deal here. The text highlights the first 40 days after passing as this highly critical adjustment period. During this window, the earth itself is said to weep for the departed believer. More importantly, though, the newly departed soul is deeply in need of the mercy of prayers as they settle into Barzakh. This is exactly why families and loved ones heavily focus on intense prayers and charity during these specific 40 days. But even beyond those first 40 days, the source notes how this builds into long-term, ongoing connections. Generally, a person's book of deeds closes at death, right? Well, not entirely. There are 3 specific doors left wide open: ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge that they left behind for others, and a righteous child who continues to pray for them. These actions essentially act as a lifeline. Whenever the living perform these deeds in the name of the deceased, the text says it brings literal light, joy, and comfort down to their grave. Furthermore, reciting specific Quranic verses provides very tangible benefits for the departed. The source uses a great analogy here, likening the recitation of the Quran for the dead to placing furniture in a bare, empty room. It transforms the space. Surah Al-Mulk acts as a literal physical shield against the torment of the grave. Surah Yasin brings mercy and eases the journey. Surah Al-Fatiha and Al-Ikhlas provide immense light and reward, pushing back the darkness and warming the soul. But eventually, the text notes, every single soul in the grave faces this incredibly heavy ultimate realization. There comes a moment where the deceased clearly sees their worldly possessions, their houses, their cars, their money, divided up and completely consumed by others. The wealth they hoarded is just gone. All the status, the fame they chased, it meant absolutely nothing in the end. In that lonely space, they realize they alone must answer for how they spent their time, and that only their deeds and their faith have actually remained with them. And that brings us to the profound philosophical challenge posed by all this source material. Because the grave, it is the great equalizer. It absolutely does not matter how rich, famous, or powerful you were, we literally all end up wrapped in the exact same simple cloth. So the explainer leaves us with this heavy question to reflect on. How are you spending your temporary lifetime? Are you chasing things that will inevitably just be given to others? Or are you building the faith and the deeds that will actually light up your ultimate destination? It's a fascinating look into a universal human mystery, and it really asks us to evaluate our choices today before we inevitably step into the unknown tomorrow.